And we're back with another episode of You and I for the Kenai. Today I'm here with Eric and Cobran. We got another recovery story today, but first I must mention I got to shout out Serenity Intake Office for the amazing snack selection that Eric will not let me consume, which is unfortunate for everybody. But on a lighter note, we got Aaron here today. We're excited to hear your story. How are you today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're excited. If you wouldn't mind just kind of kicking us off, telling us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, Lord. My name's Aaron McGann. My family's been here since the 40s. I've been here ever since I was born, and, you know, what can I tell you? What do you want to know? Where I'm from, what I did, who I am?
All of it.
Okay, my family, like I said, has been here forever. We've been out in Nikiski. Grew up a pretty normal life, you know. Getting dirty, playing on dirt bikes. Never really wanted for anything, and, well, let's say when I was about 15, I found substances, and I liked them. You know, everybody tried to sniff glue, I think, but I was just the kid who liked the glue. Sure. I took the glue bottle home. I didn't leave it there. Because I had some things happen when I was a little kid, and the substances seemed to help. So
sure.
Ran on a runner for quite a while, and here we are today.
So pretty much from 15 going?
15 going,
I mean,
yeah.
You started using a little bit at 15, and then it was...
It was just like everybody, you know, what I thought was normal. Everyday high school kid, you know, playing sports and drinking on the weekends.
Okay.
Mine just continued. When everybody else was in class in college, I was waking up. You know, I went to UAA, got some student loans, don't got a degree. Wonder why. But no, from about 15 on, it was what I would consider normal, and then it just progressed from there. Just like anything, you do something enough, you're going to do it more, and you're going to do it more, and you're going to do it more. And my drinking got a little out of hand towards the end.
So when did you start to think, like, because it's always interesting when people start to think maybe my drinking is a problem, or like everything in my life is a problem but my drinking is fine. When did you kind of start to think maybe I have a drinking problem, or was there a time when people were saying to you like, hey Aaron, we think you might, you know, be drinking a little too much? Like, what was that experience like? I guess as far as, you get what I'm saying? Like recognizing
there was a problem,
or maybe just like maybe something
ain't right. I'm not doing this normally. When I would say I was about 25.
Really? So you had a solid 10 years of
10 years
pretty
of
strong binge drinking.
Oh yeah, that I knew. No, binge drinking. Shoot, that was easy. I drank every day.
Sure.
About the time I was 25, I started to think that maybe there was something abnormal. But at 25, I was a slope worker, and I didn't drink for my 2 weeks at work. So I wasn't a drinker.
Right.
But the biggest seller in the commissary on the slope is NyQuil. There's a reason for that. Sadly enough, you would think it would be something else, but it is NyQuil.
Huh.
Because of the alcohol content. You're able to go to sleep those first couple nights. You know, you making $80,000 a year and you're flying back to the slope and you've got to borrow money to buy the ticket, you might have a problem with spending. You know, brand new truck, a brand new snow machine, and no gas in either one of them.
Yeah.
But at about 25, I would say I started to notice there was an issue.
I guess that is interesting because we do see this quite often. I think we're seeing it again, hearing it again, is kind of, we see work really be able to mask or blind people from their problems or mask people's problems to some pretty large extents, you know. We've seen a mixture of this with either slope working or, you know, other kind of oil rig working, or like fishing especially as well. Yep. And basically what we keep coming back to is this cultural component where there's a strong emphasis on working hard and playing hard, and that as long as you're working hard, there's no such thing as too hard of playing hard. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And the fact of the matter is that, so I'm you, right? I'm not. But let's say and I have an addiction. So I'm a little, you know, I have that ability to rationalize my addiction away to extreme degrees for the most part. And I'm sitting there, you know what I'm thinking? Dude, I literally am sober 50% of my life. I'm not going to count NyQuil, obviously. Like, when I'm in my rationalization process, I'm like, I'm literally sober 50% of my life. And other parts of, I'm thinking, like, that's pretty dang good. And, like, that's not bad. Like, well, it's probably better than some people.
Yeah.
And, like, with the fishing as well, we see people go out and they're not drinking hardcore, on the boat or anything. I mean, they're going out for 30, 60, 90 days, making, 30, 60, 90K.
Yep.
And I think we see this especially, and you'd probably see it in other places as well, but I think we've definitely been able to really locate it now and identify it quite quickly at this point.
And like very much, I mean, in a very local kind of niche almost, where like Alaska especially is very like work hard, play hard.
Oh, yeah.
With the slope and
Absolutely.
with fishing and with all these kind of major markets for this kind of behavior. You know what I mean? It's very easy to kind of get wrapped up, and it's passed on, and it's just kind of accepted. So it's not. It's not a problem until it's a problem. Then it's too late.
Well, anybody that's ever worked on the slope or flown back and forth from the slope, you get on the plane and you're going to work. That flight is quiet the whole way there. Nobody's talking.
Depressing.
Everybody's headed back to work. They've got their mindset in, I'm going to do my job. You get on the plane to fly home, first 15 minutes, it's quiet. Get up to altitude, drink cart comes out. That plane does not shut up till the minute it lands in Anchorage. People are laughing, they're telling stories, they're in a good mood. It's have a great R&R. Everybody's looking forward to that time of play. And it's an attitude that you learn up there from the old guys. People that work normal jobs, they'd look and they'd go, wait, you make how much money a year? And you have this, how many new shiny trucks do you guys see driving through town with snow machines in the back?
Yeah.
But those guys are, and a lot of them really do well with the money. And they live that lifestyle well, but it's so easy for you to get into or go the direction I did with that money and that play hard, constant attitude. And it runs off on you quickly.
Yeah, I was listening to Dr. Jordan Peterson, and he was talking about how at some point there are some temptations that you just can't afford, and that's good. Because if you have a large amount of money, it becomes infinitely harder because there's these avenues that open up to support a kind of lifestyle. Because, I couldn't drink every night because I wouldn't be able to afford that. And I mean, I guess you can take out loans or what have you, but it's not sustainable.
Dude, you'd have a problem.
Yeah.
You'd have a problem. Whoa, I think we need to talk.
Right, but it's just when you have that, $80,000 a year, it's well, what am I gonna do with this? And you're working so hard on the slope, and you just want to have a good time. So I can understand how that mentality kind of develops.
Dude, I understand that. That makes a lot of sense, honestly. Because I remember thinking back to high school, and being just trying to get pot or something. I only get $20 a week for lunch, so how am I going to stretch this to 10 and 10 and still go to Taco Bell and get 2 burritos a day from the dollar menu and still have $10 left? Yeah,
You buy $20 worth of weed and sell half of it.
Right.
Sorry, that was that kid.
Yeah. But yeah, dude,
That kid for sure.
man, if only I could afford this and yeah, dude, that freedom's honestly.
Well,
could be an issue.
when I was in that making money and running and playing the way that I was, I never had enough. I always wanted more.
Yeah.
And since I made these changes, I make a third of the money I was making. My bank account is twice what it was. And my personal happiness is through the roof. I am 10 times the person I was, and I make a third of what I was making. So I learned that lesson quickly, that money doesn't fix it. I had to be happy with who I was, and that's what I was always chasing, is that next high. Let it be buy the new truck, let it be the new fancy girlfriend, sorry, but that's what I went after, was labels. I wanted that label, I wanted the Beats headphones, and the ones that were knockoffs wouldn't work, but they sound just the same. I just don't have that label.
Did you want to be liked by the people around you, or did you want to be seen as someone who could live that kind of lifestyle? Or
when I was in my addiction at the deepest part, absolutely all I wanted was people to like me. I didn't like myself so much, and I had such low self-esteem that I would do anything that I had to, that I felt would garner some appreciation, garner some attention. You know, I've always been loud and obnoxious, but I guess I did it more back then just for the attention. And I didn't realize it at the time, but I was that unhappy with who I was that I needed that constant reassurance from others that say, hey, I have value. Even if it is just making somebody laugh, I needed that.
Yeah.
Or Lou, look what he's got. Or, you know, and that's just what it was. But not no more.
Yeah.
So how long were you? So you're 25. What's that like? Maybe something abnormal. What's that process like?
Well, for me, it was, you know, at 25, I was single. I didn't have any children, and I just didn't have anything. And it took till I was 37 before I went to treatment. So it took another 10 years of just grinding myself into the ground. If I would have never hit my bottom, I don't think I would have ever got out of it. But when I realized there was a problem, I just put it away and said, you know what, I'm doing good. I'm working. You know, I have this fancy car. I have these fancy clothes. I have fancy friends. I go out to fancy dinners. You know, and that was my lifestyle, and I was content with it. I said, you know what, there's a problem here, but I'm not hurting anybody but me. So I avoided it for a long time. And
Why do you think there was a problem? Were you like blacking out much more than your friends? Were you like,
I
having
was
the shakes more than?
I was
or
the guy who could still drink. I was the guy that wanted to drink on a Tuesday night. I was the guy that had booze at home. You know, my friends were further in their lives. You know, they were getting married. They were having children. They were doing a thing called saving for retirement. Something, you know, that I wasn't doing. All the things that a 25-year-old male should be taking pride in and doing with his life, or what I thought they should be doing, I wasn't doing. You know, everybody else was moving forward, and I was staying the 19-year-old, woohoo, let's have fun, no responsibilities. And just went, man, that might not be so right. You know?
Sure.
So, but then it just went on. And then when I had my daughter, thank goodness she has an amazing mom who doesn't have an addictive personality and is just an amazing woman, because she saw what was going on and she said, no, I'm not staying with this type of guy. And she did what was best for our daughter, and she left me. But when Shelby was born, I really started to think there was something wrong. It's like, wait, I've got to be a dad. I need to make some changes. But it's a lot easier to say those things than actually make them happen.
Sure.
I didn't know where to get help. I didn't know what help to get. I was embarrassed. There's a big stigma. I'm not an addict. You know, I'm not a junkie.
Right.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
And so are some of my biggest heroes. They just point it in the right direction today.
Sure.
But after Shelby was born, the self-loathing and the low self-esteem continued to go up because I still wasn't being a father. I wasn't being a productive man. As what I saw as being a productive man. You know, being a provider, being a caregiver, being a good dad, showing a good example. So my drinking went up, not down. I didn't slow down. I got worse because I disliked myself even more.
Yeah, like that cycle of self-hatred into escaping from responsibilities into...
Absolutely. I shaved in the shower, and I used to say that, I just like to shave in the shower. I shaved in the shower because I did not like looking in the mirror. Wow. As arrogant and as vain as I was, I didn't like to look at myself in the mirror. I hated it. I despised that person because I wasn't happy with where I was in my life. I wasn't happy with who I was in my life at that time. But I wasn't willing to ask for help. I was Aaron McGann. I was going to fix this problem, and the problem just got worse and worse and worse and worse. Yeah, till, 2016. That's when it all kind of, 2015, that's all when it kind of came to a head. You know, everybody talks about their rock bottom, or I would have never had a rock bottom. I have a very supportive family. I would have always had a job. I would have always had a way to continue to do what I was doing if I wanted to. And in October 23rd, 2015, I was on my way to a doctor's appointment to see what else was wrong with my body because I was drinking a fifth of vodka a day. So there's things shutting down in a 38-year-old male if you're consuming that much booze. And while on that way to the doctor's office, I got in a wreck. The accident wasn't my fault. It was a head-on collision. The other driver was a very young man. He turned out to be 23. And being a slope worker and being that vain, arrogant guy, I wanted to take all the fire first responder classes because I wanted to help. No, I just wanted the t-shirt because it looked good. And it said I was on the fire team. But there's some really good training there. And I'd never had to use any of that training until that accident. When our cars came to a stop, I was able to get out of mine. He wasn't able to get out of his. And for about 2 minutes there, it was just me and him. Well, 2 minutes and 36 seconds is how long it took Captain Burnett to be on scene. It was right by the fire station, so it was really quick response time. But for that 2 minutes, it was just me and that kid. There was people around, but in my eyes, that was the only people there. And I was just talking to him, you know, keeping his head still, saying, "Who are you? How many brothers and sisters? What's your mom's name?" Just to keep him coherent till help arrived. And I didn't know it at the time, but that was me at 23. Good-looking kid driving a fast sports car way too fast. After being out all night drinking at 10 a.m., he's on his way back to town. No, I don't hold anything against that young man. I'm actually extremely grateful because it changed my life. But that was my rock bottom. Realizing what could have happened. I could have been dead. We both could have been dead. And it was 10 a.m. And if that accident would have happened at 10 p.m., I'd have been drunk. And how many times had I driven at 10 a.m. when I was still physically drunk? You know, it's easy to say, "Oh, I was just hungover." No, there's still that much alcohol in your system. The next morning, you were still legally drunk. Just because I could handle it doesn't change it. But that night before I hadn't drank, it was weird. So that morning, it was just, it was bad. It was a really bad situation, and from October 23rd till about, well, I can tell you, till February 6th, I did everything I could to drink myself to death. I wasn't saying that, and I wasn't suicidal, but when you go from drinking a fifth a day to you're not going to work and you're drinking 2/5 a day, you lose your job, you lose everything in your life, you're not even communicating with your wife or your child. Something's going on. That's not you trying to work through it emotionally. That is you destroying yourself. Well, my mom and my wife got together and called me out on it and said, "You need to go to treatment." I agreed. But not being accountable, I didn't look into it, of course. So they did.
Yeah.
And I learned a very important lesson. When somebody wants to get in treatment, we need to get them there now. Not a week down the road, not 10 days down the road. Not, "We don't have a bed for you."
Yeah.
We need to get them in there now. The Watershed is the treatment I went to. They're based out of Florida, but they have a treatment facility in Webster, Texas, close to my mom. My mom talked to them on the morning of the 7th. They had a bed for me, airline, reservations, and accommodations from my door to their door in less than 12 hours. I was on a plane February 8th, and I was at their doors by February 9th in the morning because I was ready to go. They just made it happen. They jumped at it and said, "Get here." So I got on the plane on the 8th and definitely ordered my absolute vodkas on the plane, which ironically, on both flights down, they didn't charge me for my alcohol, which was really weird. So I knew how much money I had in my account. I had enough to cover my drinks down there. But they didn't charge me. I don't know. I was like, all right, well, my last couple drinks were free. Woohoo! Thank you. So that was the run-in, and that's where it ended. Is when I got to Texas, I was done. I had just literally said, "You know what? I've been running this for way too long, and I've been screwing it up. Teach me." you know, and I was open to whatever they told me. They told me how to do something. That's how I did it, because I wasn't running it right. So the running stopped about, well, right there, 8:38 on February 9th is the minute I walked into the intake office of the watershed, and one of my best friends to this day, Kim, was the intake office lady that day, and love her to death, and I'm still grateful because she had welcomed me with open arms, and they were there to help, and they were there to teach me what to do. So that's where we got to, and that's when we're to the sober part of Aaron's life, I guess.
So what do you think would have happened if it hadn't been so fast? Do you think you would have just kind of flaked out and been like, I'll get to that eventually, and just gone back? Or do you think you
Like if it was like, okay, we'll get you in 10 days.
Yeah, even that. Do you think
I believe I was to the point where I would have waited.
Yeah.
you were pretty
But that's
ready?
not always the case.
I was ready to be done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I genuinely was so tired that I was just done. I was done either way, but them being able to get me in. Do I think it would have made it? I know it makes a difference. I've seen it make a difference in people.
Oh, yeah.
The amount of time that they have to wait to get in is the difference between life and death in some situations.
Yeah. In one of my classes, we did go through kind of like the situation, especially in Alaska, how difficult it is for somebody, especially like in rural Alaska, which you don't see this necessarily in its exact form in other states because Alaska's so big, so you don't necessarily get the distance. You don't get like the ratio of rural to non-rural, to urban. So there's a lot of situations where this occurs, where somebody in rural Alaska is ready to get some help, and it's like there's so many barriers to getting them in any way that's a timely fashion, between travel and open beds and it costs.
Yeah.
And just these several barriers to doing so. Maybe there's communication difficulties, like getting people in a timely manner in Alaska is really a challenge. And they've pushed certain, I think, mental health legislation in the state to try to make things more accessible. They had a detox facility open up here in Soldotna, which, the thing about it is people, you're like, oh, we got this many beds in detax opening up in Soldotna, and I think I don't remember the exact number. I wish I
times
did.
it times 10, and it's still not going to be enough beds.
But another interesting thing, though, is a little bit different than that, is that you say, okay, cool, 6 beds. Or you say, cool, 12 beds. I think it's 6. But the thing about it is you compare those number of beds to the amount total in the state, it makes a difference because there's just such a little bit. You have 30 beds, 60 beds total in the state. You add 6, you're adding, 20, 10%, just depending.
Yeah.
So, I think there has been, especially here in Soldotna, there has been a good, I actually took this class with Dr. Sellers, who, runs the hospital. She was, saying that, there are barriers and that it does matter. Like you said, getting people in a timely manner can make a big difference. So when people need to get in, we need to really be doing our best, making a priority to get them in. Yeah. And so I just, I think it is, something that we, as we become more aware of, kind of a tangent here as well, as we become more aware of addiction and its impacts, and we start to see what are some of the things we need to prioritize. One of the things I think people and all of us need to keep on our minds is we need to be prioritizing mental health in ways that truly do make impacts. And one of those is having beds available, having ways to get people in, and prioritizing getting them in a timely manner. Anyway, it's cool. It's interesting you say that.
Well, and then the other resources, our community is amazing when it comes to being open about substance problems. I have no qualms saying I'm an addict. I love the fact that I'm an addictive personality, but our community has great support here. There is a meeting literally daily in this town, somewhere. There is sober living homes in this town.
Yeah.
We're lucky to have those things. And the people that are parts of these groups are so open and willing to communicate. That's something I've never seen anywhere else. And I'm grateful to live in this little town because of that. I don't believe that people in this community have such a stigma about it as other places because it is such a small town and it's so prevalent.
Prevalence. No, it's interesting you say that, because I was listening to this thing the other day. I'm truly not trying to like suck up to Dr. Sellers, but she was in another class of mine, like as a guest speaker, talking about
Why is the
addiction.
picture behind you over? I don't.
Hey man, no, but I had heard this before, but it was interesting to hear again and connect it in a new way. Is essentially, the crack epidemic. That was urban, that was low minority in race and minority in socioeconomic status. I mean, that was like mostly poor black people in inner city places. I mean, it
An oil
went
field
other
rednecks
places.
in Kenai, Alaska. I'll just throw that out there. Yep, we did that one.
Really?
But, oh gosh, yes, absolutely. That was here. Oh yeah.
So this wasn't her point, but it's kind of what I connected in some ways, was the crack epidemic to a large extent was affecting poor black people.
Oh, absolutely.
And frankly, some people cared, most didn't. Most really just no big deal, not hurting me, it's hurting those people, the minority, blah, blah, blah. Well, then the opioid epidemic comes around, and oh my gosh, middle-class white people are getting addicted. And it's like, oh wow, it put a whole new perspective on addiction. It was like, addiction does not discriminate against like class, race, etc. Like it is like that disposition is there in a lot of different groups, and it will and can affect these different groups. And the fact of the matter is that middle class, and I'm not trying to make some political statement here, I'm just saying middle class white people started getting addicted, and oh my gosh, we better do something about it. And now we do have some legislation around there. There's like it's an epidemic, like there are some big things pushing forward.
And just the amount of research that's come to fruition in the last like 20 years, like since like the late 90s, early 2000s versus like the 80s to the like from the early 80s to 2000. Like
absolutely.
I don't know what the exact graph number here is, but I bet it's fairly large for
Right.
2000.
Definitely changed.
Yeah, and I mean with the expansion of technology, and stuff like that as well, but I mean, and just the funding that's gone into it and everything like that, like I think there's research that would absolutely back that.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
And I think what's interesting too is like, if we are kind of smart in thinking like what's going on, like what can we do, like now is kind of our time where people are listening.
Yes.
And so it's things like all these other, really like the community, like you said, like it's so prevalent now. Yep. People are
everybody can
forced to listen almost.
Everybody can connect with it in some form or fashion. Everybody's affected by it. But the one thing I see a lot of that I hear a lot that makes well, not uncomfortable, but when I say I'm an addict or I have an addictive personality, people want to say they're sorry.
Right?
I don't want to hear I'm sorry. I am grateful. Because I can name off a whole bunch of people that have addictive personalities that are doing amazing things. Tony Robbins. If that guy wanted to shoot up heroin, he'd be living under a dumpster, shooting up every day. But that's not where he channeled it. He channeled it into something else. That guy has an addictive personality. Arnold Schwarzenegger. His dad's 5'11", 170 pounds. Arnold didn't get that big because he was naturally built like that. He had an addictive personality. He loved it. He got endorphins out of it. That is an addictive personality, just channeled in a different direction. So be grateful. That is my biggest problem is people, I'm an addict. Why are you shrugging your shoulders and putting your head down? Put your shoulders back and your head up and be proud of it. Run with it. Use it. The only people that have ever changed this planet were addictive personalities. Not one normal, I'm content, changed anything. So that's why when I hear, I'm sorry you're an addict. No, I'm not. I'm grateful.
Well, it's almost like you have a dedicated personality. In a sense, it's like, once you get on board with something, you're 100%.
Oh, yeah, I'm in it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, well, when that goes down the wrong road, it's terrible. But when it goes down the right road, it's beautiful.
Absolutely. And then we, people that have addictive personalities are lucky. We are very lucky because when we put our mind to something, we do it. There's no doubt about it. One of my favorite addicts is Nikola Tesla. I'm a huge fan of the guy. He had everything stolen from him. all of his work taken away from him, no credit given to him. But when he died, where did they find him? They found him in his workshop, working on his next invention. He was constantly working. He didn't let what happened to him steer him away from what his goal was. He continued, and he died in pursuit of that goal. That's somebody who'd been kicked and kicked and kicked and kicked again, but yet he kept getting up and he kept following
It was,
through.
I might be wrong. One of the persons that stole some of his stuff was Edison, right?
Yeah.
And I don't see any cars these days named the Edison. I'll just say that. Elon Musk didn't name his cars the Edison.
There's another prime example of a guy who has an addictive personality. The first couple of years of Tesla, how many of those cars got returned? How many mistakes were made? How many manufacturers sent him the wrong parts? How many hours did that guy put into making that company what it is today? Sleepless night after sleepless night after sleepless night. I saw 2 of them in Kenai, Alaska. This is no longer
I think there's a Tesla
science fiction.
charging port up at the Brew 602, the train coffee place on your way
Really?
out of town. I think there's a Tesla charging port there.
Really?
What?
Yeah, it
Oh
might
my
just be
goodness.
because there's the blue one that the owner of that restaurant owns. I don't know.
Tax write-off.
That's right.
But he does. I believe the owner of that restaurant does own one
sure,
of the Teslas
sure.
that are in town.
Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting.
Okay.
But that's an addictive personality at its prime. Why not use that?
Yeah.
You know, so get happy about it. I do.
You
It's my
have
thing.
to kind of segue, and we might move back and forth,
Okay.
But you have, right? I mean, you are wearing a sweatshirt that says "Racing for Recovery."
Yes.
Can you tell us about that? I actually don't know anything about it. I
Okay,
didn't before this. I didn't watch the video that you mentioned earlier. Before we
good.
were recording, I didn't watch the video. I didn't know anything about it, so
Okay,
this is all new to me.
Well, Racing's Recovery is a community outreach program that me and some of the guys that were in my program at Wildwood actually came up with as a class project. I said, how do we take motorsports and get it and use it as a means to help people find recovery? It started out with I have a 1964 MG Roadster, and we were just going to build that car and take it to races and put recovery on it just to get people to ask what
You
recovery
and
is.
you and some guys that you knew in Wildwood.
Some of the guys that were in Wildwood helped me come up with the idea, and then
You guys were gonna, I guess,
I'm sorry, yeah, we were
I have to do it again.
okay.
For class 2 days ago, I toured Wildwood.
Oh, great,
Yeah, toured the whole place. It was
fun,
fun to tour.
yeah.
Wouldn't want to live there, but actually, without consuming too much time, one of the things I thought was really cool. So it was forensic psychology class. So we've been studying prisons and like some of the mental health services that will be offered there. And so when I got there and like, oh, first floor is all for substance abuse. People live there. Blah blah blah. That wasn't surprising. I was like, okay, I've read about things like that. Not surprised. One of the things that did surprise me and that I thought was super cool was they have these programs where inmates they earn some trust and everything. They will, but I mean they're serving prison time. You know, they will. Like they do a bunch of like really involved maintenance like on these vehicles they
Yep.
doing like true full on like servicing like heavy machinery big
Yep.
trucks like they do like the inmates do like 90% of the maintenance there. They have some supervisors to where like there's like a supervisor like employee electrician employee plumber.
Yep.
But outside of that the guys that are serving time in there are doing most all of the work. They're doing welding. They're using these big, like saws and like big equipment, and like construction. And so I think like they say, oh, we have the hobby shop, and I'm not like condescending to that, but I'm like, oh, that's awesome. But I wasn't surprised, or we have this substance abuse treatment. That was not surprising. But then they're like, oh, we have this place where these inmates are coming and doing like some real manual and getting to use some technologies and tools that are a little bit different than one might think occurs. So
Yeah,
anyway, was it something like that? Were you guys doing something along those lines? Or?
No, it was just me brainstorming how do I incorporate my love for motorsports and my recovery. And I noticed that I wasn't going to as many of the traditional meetings. I was spending a lot more time in my shop. And guys were coming over and we started turning into, it was every Thursday night at 6. We were showing up at my shop and we're working on the MG. You know, we didn't follow any specific meeting agenda
Format, right.
or format. We just, if somebody had something to talk about, we'd talk about it. If nobody had anything to talk about, we worked on the MG. And it just continued to progress a little bit. And then at the end of this last racing season, my family's been racing in Alaska since we got up here. I did some research last week, and one McGann has been racing every year since 1968. At least one every year,
Wow.
somewhere in the state. So it's
Dang.
something we've been doing forever. And my dad had his sprint car out for the last races in September. My family's not a big huggers, I love you, I'm proud of you type of family. And the last race of the last day, he let me take his car out. This is something I'd never been in the car before. It's something that I always hated growing up because I always wanted it but never was allowed to touch it. He said, you know what, you've earned this. You're almost 3 years sober today. I'm very proud of you. Take the car. I'm like, Dad, I can't take your car out. I can't afford to fix it. If you wreck it, you wreck it. You've wrecked a lot of my stuff in the past. At least wreck this one, and I'm looking forward to it. So I took his car out, and I did 15 laps, and it was great, and it was this awesome bonding moment with Dad, and, you know, hey, I think this is working because I've got a relationship with my father. Well, the next week, I'm out at his shop because we've turned it into, that's how me and him communicate. We hang out around the race car. We're pulling the engine out of his car, and he says, you know, Aaron, this racing for recovery, if you really think this is something that can work and it can really help people, I want to help. I said, okay, Dad, what do you want to do? You know, you want to come out and help on the MG? And he said, no, I'm giving you that car. Now, and I was like, whatever, Dad, you know, you're not giving me your car. No, he said, no, Aaron, that sprint car is yours. I'm proud of you. I want you to do this. And it was like a big hug from Dad. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, wow, thanks, Dad, for an old chassis. He has two, granted. He didn't give me his only car. He gave me the old one that was a pile of parts in the corner. But it was still, if you really want to do this, I love you, I'm proud of you, and I'm going to support you. So that was in October 1st of this year, of 2018. And by October 23rd, I went from a pile of parts to a complete car. I talked to some of the other guys that race, one of my sponsors, RPMs. I talked to the Mellish, the owner of that. I said, John, I need a front axle so I can put this car together for trunk or treats. I want to get this car in public. And parts just started showing up. And we got a car together. Granted, it didn't have an engine in it. But we were ready for trunk or treats at the Boys and Girls Club. We had 438 kids get in that car at trunk or treat to get a photo. But it was 438 parents standing there looking up and seeing recovery on the side of a car, on a beautiful race car. I mean, this isn't an old beat-up El Camino. This is, and don't get me wrong, I love old beat-up El Camino. Super fast, and one of my favorite drivers runs an old beat-up El Camino. But it's a fancy, shiny race car, and it's easy to communicate around. And I was still up in the air if I knew this was going to work or not. And during those, in one of those 438 kids, one of their dads was just looking at the car. He turned out to be Grandpa. But Grandpa was just looking, and he started asking questions about the car. And being a counselor like I have been, I've learned how when people have something they need to talk about, when there's something going on that needed to say. I said, sir, I don't know you, but what's going on? You know, why? What can I do? And he said, you know, I found my kid in the bathroom with a needle in his arm. I don't know what to do. And it was the fact that man was able to say something to me And, it was the car. It was easy. It wasn't an uncomfortable situation for him. But he was able to dump his guts to a complete stranger and say, my family needs help. My son needs help. But more so, I need help. What do I do? And it was him asking for that made me go, you know what? This is worth it. This is going to work. And we haven't stopped since. We did the trunk or treats. We did Salteshi trails. We community event after community event. We went down to Homer for the Coastin' Through Kenai, and we dedicated the car to the Coast Guard. Went down and matched the vinyl to the Coast Guard cutter, and we did Sweeney's Parade. We did the sports show. Anything we can do to get that car out to where it's just sitting there. It's easy to walk up and talk about a car. But they don't know that man dumped his guts to me. They don't know that I took his phone number and got his son to a meeting. Nobody else knows that, but he does. And his kid's doing okay. We all make mistakes, but we were able to open up that line to recovery for that one kid because it was an easy conversation. Now, helping that kid's great, but knowing that I helped that dad get some sleep that night, that's worth it all day long. I mean, I'm grateful for every addict or every person with an addictive personality we can help. But I'm more grateful for the moms and the dads and the brothers and the grandparents and the people that are also affected, getting them some help. Because me being a drunk wasn't just killing me. It was killing my mom, my dad, the relationship with my wife, the relationship with my daughter. So many people were affected by my choices that if I can help other people help a mom find an Al-Anon meeting, help a child find some help, having a kid willing to come up and talk and say, this is what my dad's dealing with, or this is where my mom's at and I'm scared. That's what we want to do. We want it to be a comfortable way for people to come up and communicate and go around in a circle really fast, which is a bonus for me, but it's the community outreach and having an easy place for people to communicate is what we're doing with it.
Yeah. No, that's
it. That's where we're at.
That's incredible.
So
I think that is I like what you said about the just being able to open that conversation, because I think there's a lot of unknown around those conversations.
Absolutely.
Like you can see him kind of going both ways at times, trying to breach a conversation and just other person maybe not being very receptive.
Yeah, and the amount of resources that are here in this community.
Yeah.
I went to Texas for treatment and spent a lot of money. But I could have went to Serenity House and learned the exact same things. Because I've been there. I've spoke there. And the classes they teach are the same classes I was taught in Texas.
Really?
I don't know if they have a Trigger Tuesday, but I'm sure they cover triggers some day of the week at Serenity.
Thursdays, maybe.
Yeah, there you go. So, it's getting those resources out.
Trigger Tuesday.
Letting people know that there are treatments here locally. That there's meetings they can go to, not just for the person who's suffering, for the mom, for the dad. Those people need support too.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe even a little bit more than the person that's suffering because they're not self-medicating.
Sure.
They're staying up. My mom lost so many nights sleep over what I was doing with my life. One of the greatest gifts I have given my mom is a good night's sleep. And she's told me that. She doesn't lose sleep over me anymore. And I didn't realize how much she was affected till I got sober. It took me a couple of years before I finally realized, wow, I was really hurting everybody, including myself. So,
so you kind of drew that insight a couple of years after being clean, meaning took a while. What were some of the things? What was your because I know we were talking earlier before we started recording. Your 30 days sober didn't look the same as 90 days.
Oh, my one day sober.
Changing.
Yeah, no, the growth in sobriety and recovery has been amazing. The day I got to treatment, I didn't believe for a second I was going to ever not use some substance, and then a month into it, I held on to that 1 month sobriety chip like it was a gold ticket, and Willy Wonka was coming around the corner. Life was good. At 60 days, I'm floating on the ceiling,
Really?
I'm 2 months sober. I'm the happiest guy in the world. Everything's amazing. Go recovery, 6 months, I hated everything.
Really?
No, in 6
it
months
was-
sobriety, I was grateful. My life was going in the right direction. But at 6 months, I started to notice things that, the guys I went to high school with, I've got friends that are getting ready to retire because they went from Nikiski High School straight to Tesoro. 38, 39 years old, getting ready to retire, 20 years, doing good. So, I started to learn what jealousy was,
Sure.
and what my emotions were. And I always thought I just disliked every guy I ever met. No. If a guy comes in the room, he's dressed nice, he's a good-looking guy, I'm jealous of that person. I don't dislike him.
Sure.
I'd consider it, I'm jealous a little bit. Oh. But I had things I didn't know. And it was just a constant learning.
Sounds like you're getting some insights that took maybe a little bit more like, I don't know if it's like higher reasoning or what, but it sounds like you were getting some insights that took a little bit more effort, more exposure, more, I guess, like pondering, perhaps.
And, the meetings.
And those were hard.
When I got back after 2 months, I only stayed in Texas for 64 days.
Quite a while.
They wanted me to stay another
6 months or
6
something,
months
yeah.
so that I could break some habits. But I made a deal with my counselor. I said, you write down what you want me to do when I get home, and I will follow it. And that's what I did. She said, Aaron, I want you to have an appointment with an aftercare program before you leave my office.
Okay.
Okay. I called, got one at Cicada. I had an appointment the day I got home. I want you to go do this. I want you to do this, and this. I liked to gamble when I was a drinker. So if you give me odds and say, Aaron, your odds are going up 10% if you attend a support group meeting twice a week, I'm going to those. You go to your relapse prevention class, you're up another 20%. That's 30% chance. I'm going to all of them.
Good odds.
So,
well, good odd
when I got
increase.
told, when I came home, I met with my counselor, Cindy, and she said, well, you need relapse prevention. You need to be here twice a week, but we offer classes 4 times a week. I was there 4 times a week. If I wasn't at Cicada in a class, I was at a meeting. There was the first 90 days home, so first 4 months. So the first 6 months sober, I was at a meeting or I was at a group every single day without fail. Not one day in that gap did I not go to something recovery related, because that's where I felt safe. That's where I knew I wasn't going to go back to old habits. I knew that's where I wasn't going to run into old friends. So that's what I did. And I just never left there. I noticed after I graduated from Cicada's program, I stayed around. And I started facilitating groups. I didn't know Cindy was my guardian angel at the time, but she was tracking all those hours. And after about another 6 months, because it just became routine, I wanted to go. I liked being in front of the class. I liked talking. So after about 6 months, she said, Aaron, you've got enough hours to get your counselor tech license. I went, huh? She said, yeah, you've been facilitating groups for 6 months. Take some classes. So she got me lined up to go take my classes, and I got my counselor tech license.
Cool.
And after
That's
I got
awesome.
my license, she, a couple weeks later, she said, well, we'd like to offer you a job.
Wow.
Nice.
What? How do I do this? Okay. And I started working as a counselor tech for Cicada and went out to Wildwood and just started logging hours. Recovery was that first year, that was all I did, was recovery.
Sure.
If I wasn't at a meeting, I was with somebody else in recovery. I was only with people that had time, because a lot of people call them sponsors. I like to call them mentors, because I have a lot of them. So I surrounded myself by people that do what I want to do.
Mhm.
You know, if you want to learn how to do something, surround yourself with the people that do it. That's how you become good at it. So that's what I was for about the first year, was a lot of meetings, a lot of support groups, a lot of emotions up and down, back and forth, learning what anger was, you know, learning what fear was. Learning that fear is something that causes me to do a lot of things. What a surprise. Oh, you know, and I learning how to handle those. Learning to communicate. I was extremely passive in my using. I would let people walk on me very regularly, and I would never say anything. Learning how to deal with that. Learning how to voice my opinion and speak up for myself. That took a while. And it's been a constant change. Constantly. It's constantly growing from day to day. You know, because I only have today. I could slip and fall on a bottle of vodka on my way out of here. I don't see it happening.
That would be ironic.
But it could happen.
That would suck, dude.
It would be bad.
That would be-
I would come back for a second podcast
If
in
you
about an
slipped
hour.
on that, if you slipped on a bottle of vodka and like got like super injured, I'd probably like take that bottle and put like a Coca-Cola bottle next to it. Just to like make like lessen the irony.
So
That's
no, I
just
think
too
it's
much,
I
bro.
think recovery is something that is constantly evolving for everybody, and for every individual, it's going to be different. And I use recovery very loosely. Just because I'm the one that used doesn't mean that my mom's recovery date's any different than mine. Same date. You ask my mom what day I got sober, she can tell you down to the minute when I checked in, because that's the first time she felt safe. You know, that recovery is for everybody, and it's for a lot of different things than just substance. We just partnered with Frontier Community Services. We're going to do a pilot program with some of their consumers. I hate to say that term, but that's what they're called. To where they come out to the pits for the day. Because when I worked for Frontier, I know that the clients I was with, the more I got them out of the house, the happier they were. That's recovering. That's moving forward. That's becoming a better version of yourself. And that's what I think recovery is to me, is becoming the best version that I can be with the limited time I have left. You know, I'm 41. If I'd have started this when I was 21, where would I be? But recovery is just being a better version of yourself, no matter what that looks like to an individual. I don't care. You know, I put people's dates on the car. There's a panel on the race car. And advertising is what pays for races. But I told my sponsors, this panel is just for sobriety. This is just for recovery dates. I have mom's dates on there. I've got kids' dates on there. My date's on there. You know, if it's a date that sticks out as the day that your life changed, I want it on the car. That's what recovery is to me. It's not Aaron got sober. It's we all made a change in our life. And whatever that change is, that's what I want. And I don't care what it takes to get it. Let's just help them get it, you know? So that's what we're doing. Sort of.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. So are you still doing that today, with Cicada?
I'm not.
Okay.
No, I left Cicada a year ago at the end of this month.
Uh-huh.
I had an opportunity to start my own business,
Oh, wow.
and I needed to take that opportunity.
Yeah.
It was the next challenge. You know, when I was in treatment, I said I want to be a counselor, and I'm going to do this, and I did it.
Yeah, yeah.
And I busted
Totally.
my butt to get there, and when the opportunity came out to start a maintenance company, I did. And I only have one, and it's only me, and I've got one contract, but it's nice to be a business owner today and be able to put as much time and effort into racing for recovery as I am able
That's
to today.
awesome.
It's a lot of work, but it's worth it.
Mm-hmm.
I am always going to be grateful to Cindy and Cicada for that opportunity, because they took a chance. You know, and I learned so much, and they've got some amazing staff.
Yeah, we did a podcast at Cicada. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
It
Resource.
was really pretty interesting. Yeah.
You know, some of the people that work there, Charlie,
That's
cool
how we
cat.
spoke with.
Yeah,
That's how we
right?
sat down. Charlie's funny, man. Maybe he'll listen to this and be like, "Whoa, come on!" But he's so mellow. I mean,
He's
maybe
not.
he's not as mellow as
No,
he
he
seems.
is.
But he's like, "What's up, guys?
Yeah.
How you doing?" I mean, he wasn't that casual, but you just get like you just feel so calm around him.
Yes.
He's very down to earth.
Yeah.
He's very down to earth, and he's passionate about what he does, and he has a burn inside of him to help other people. And me and him don't see eye to eye on a lot of things. We
Sure.
really don't.
Right.
Our opinions on the matters, far as you can get.
Yeah.
But at our cores, we both go, you know what? That person has a burn to help others.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter that we don't see eye to eye on everything.
Mm-hmm.
We still say, hey, what's up?
What's up?
What's up, Charlie? How's life?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, it's been a ride, that's for sure.
I imagine your relationships have improved drastically.
Some, yeah, and some have went. So, I never knew how to be in a relationship.
Right, yeah.
I was very self-destructive, so I had to learn. It's not okay to flirt with the waitress when you're on a date. Didn't know that.
Yeah.
I just thought I was getting another date.
Right.
What's better than one day?
Two dates.
Kobe, you would, bro.
No.
That guy.
But there was a lot of learning on communication, how to communicate, how to, standing up for myself was a big one. I was always a pushover, especially like with my father and I's relationship today. I look at him more like my best friend than I do an authoritative figure anymore. And it used to be he was an authoritative figure because I owed him money, or I was hiding something from him, or I didn't tell him about this or that. But today, I just call him, what's going on? Oh yeah, I did this. And it's being able to communicate was a big one. And being honest and accountable. Having accountability with the relationships I have today is why I have the relationships I have today. My mama calls and she says, Aaron, you're going to do this. She knows I'm going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
She might not like it. When I told her I was getting in a sprint car, she said, no, please, no. It's not a safe thing. But, the relationships I have today are much better because I'm accountable. Not because those people changed, because I changed. My daughter is 13 years old. She doesn't need dad right now. She's a 13-year-old girl.
Yeah.
I'm just dad.
Yeah.
But I asked her the other day, I said, Shelby, what are the two things you know about your dad? You love me and you're proud of me. I said, as a girl, that's all you need to know right now. Is your dad loves you and he's proud of you.
Wow.
Do you think dad makes mistakes? Absolutely, dad, but you're not a drunk today. Because she knows. She knew from the minute I got on the plane. I told her where I was going and why. And I thought I'd been hiding all those years. She knew.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Little kids see it. But she's watched. And we have a relationship today that is built on trust and honesty. And I know that I put a big stop on the chances of her following in my steps by being honest with her, by taking her to the occasional meeting, by telling her the things that I did. I don't go into details with some of it, but
Sure.
she knows that her dad wasn't a good guy. Does she know the things her dad did? No.
Right.
I had to break a lot of relationships too. I had to end a bunch.
Yeah.
But those were a lot easier to end than I thought.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, they ended them for themselves.
Right.
Since I was no longer the one making the relationship happen,
Yeah.
they just faded away.
Settled out. Yeah.
Which is great for me, for everybody involved.
Mm-hmm.
I had to make a lot of amends. I thought I had to come back and apologize to everybody. I don't need to apologize. I'm just continue doing what I'm doing and try and make it right.
Mm-hmm.
We joked about the waitress and the second date, but that was one of my ways of making myself feel better about Aaron, was always to have some girlfriend and always have a new girlfriend. And I was never I never treated women the way they deserve to be treated. So I've had a lot of, I got to own that. That was me.
Yeah.
Totally did that, but at least I'm able to do that today. So those relationships are amazing, yeah.
You guys got any final questions? I feel like this has been very
Been
except
good.
for what I'm doing now.
Yeah,
I feel
like-
as if there has been like so much good information just consistently coming. No, and we haven't like stuck, except for maybe something I've said. We haven't stuck on any one thing for like, oh my gosh.
I'm
Let's,
still
let's
stuck
move
on
it
the
along,
snacks,
you know.
dude, honestly.
That's what I'm saying. They got all these good snacks.
The errands are restless.
Yeah.
We
got all these good snacks. We got all these good snacks, and we're not allowed to have any of them, according to Eric. Eric's really my barrier right now. He's my barrier to my snacks, which is an issue.
I'll
for
bring
me.
snacks next time, I promise.
Thanks, man.
So if anybody wanted to be, I guess, if anybody wanted to be not necessarily involved, but I guess know more about Racing for Recovery, what's a good way to
They
do
can
so?
find us on social media for sure. You know, RFR, Racing for Recovery on Facebook.
RFR, Racing
yep,
for Recovery.
Racing for Recovery. They can contact me directly. I mean, you're welcome to call me on my cell phone. It's 907-398-1726.
398-1726.
1726
Okay.
is my cell. You know, maybe you just have a couple questions. Maybe you have a kid you want to drop off and make wrench. We'll make them do something.
Yeah.
You know, it's getting people out. If you've got questions, man, call and ask us. Find us on social media.
Yeah.
It's easy.
So you guys still work on cars, like as it's because I know you were doing the working on the vehicle, the
Yep,
Roadster.
BMG. Yep.
for,
Thursday night.
Thursday. Do you guys still do
Thursday night is shop night, 6 to 8 p.m.
So you still do that?
Absolutely.
Cool. Because one of the things I think is, and I'm not saying that meetings are inferior to what you're doing. I'm saying this seems different.
It's different.
You're coming around a topic that everybody can kind of approach without much awkwardness or
Yes.
without. There's no. I guess I would say. There
Stigma.
doesn't. There seems to be a smaller amount of vulnerability coming around working on the car, and maybe
Yeah.
not saying anything, than there is about really sitting around in that circle, and looking around and thinking, do I talk? Do I not? Listening, figuring it all out. It seems like there's an approach there that may be easier for some to make
Yep.
than they would in another situation.
And that's what it is too. It's I've had people that say, "Well, I just don't like a traditional meeting." Really?
Yeah.
Here's my address, and then you can just see the blank look on their face that, "Oh wow, I was just saying that because I didn't want to go to a meeting, not because I really didn't like them. I just don't want to go."
I think the cool thing about what you're doing too is like when you're sitting in those meetings, and it comes to your turn, like you are the focal point, like the attention's there.
And you
Whereas
need that.
now, like the car is kind of more the focal point, and you're kind of just. I mean, you're still getting to do like
You're
add
still
your story
getting
and
some
do
of
your
it.
stuff.
I bet you're
but
still
it's-
getting. I not to like totally disagree, but I bet you're still getting a lot of times where where you and what's going on in your life is the center of things.
Yeah,
They're
and
just
without I got
suppose
the
that's
meeting,
valuable.
the traditional meetings, guys. Without them, I would not be sitting here.
Right.
Would
Yeah.
not be here
Sure.
without them.
Sure.
Just the shop night is a way for people to see that there is more that you can go out and do. Maybe you don't fit in with this group or that group or this group. Maybe you don't fit in with us, but you meet somebody and you hang out with them. I've got guys that made it a couple nights, went to one shop night and then met another racer and is now working on their car.
Sure.
But it's just helping people make connections in the community.
Yeah.
You don't
Yeah.
have to just stay in that one little spot.
Yeah.
Get out, meet the people.
Learn
in
new
the community.
things, learn certain skills,
Yes.
feel a sense of accomplishment.
Get a new mentor once a month.
A lot of things going on there.
Well,
yeah.
plus, and as you mentioned, there's even less excuses. So, if I was thinking, I don't like to go to meetings, I want to be working or whatever.
Come on,
Yeah, exactly.
I got
That's
a spot for you.
Exactly.
And when people they're like, "Well, Aaron, how can you do that?" So you might get robbed. So, how much have I stolen my life from individuals? Not when I say steal, not material things, but how much have I taken away? And I have a little tiny shop.
Lots of sleep.
Lots of
If
sleep.
we put that at $5 an hour
Yeah.
of sleep, you're in a lot of debt.
I'm in a lot of debt.
Yeah, sure.
Dude,
So-
I pay more than $5 an hour for a good sleep.
I would too,
Just-
actually. But it's just a little tiny shop.
My bad,
and we
Kobe.
don't have.
Sorry, dude.
You're a little uppity on your sleep price because 5 would be great.
No.
But I don't have expensive tools in there, and even if I did, the amount, whatever's in my shop, I would gladly give away to, say, have somebody come to me in 5 years and say, Aaron, just the time I spent on the MG opened up some doors. It got me to where I was more comfortable going to a meeting. Because I've got to go to those meetings, guys. Those things are key.
Yeah.
Support groups and a traditional meeting, whichever direction you go,
Right.
I don't care. I'm not pushing an agenda with either one of them, but without them, I wouldn't be here. I know that.
So you've been working on the MG for how long now?
Oh, I got Gertie in May of last year. So
So
she's
almost
just about a year.
You ever drive her around?
Oh, I've been through 2 engines and all
okay.
sorts of parts,
Oh,
yeah.
right on.
No, right now she's just up on, we're putting in new floorboards, new floor pans, bunch of sheet metal work, and just going through it, just to update it a little bit.
Nice.
And it's nice. It's fun to do. So that's about it. MG's fun.
Yeah, that is cool.
I wanted a Shelby. I'm never going to get a real one. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to buy a kit car.
Yeah. How are those just ridiculously expensive?
Yeah, the one I want. Yeah, no, not the. I want the original Ace Cobra, what's the AC Ace, which is an aluminum body British sports car from '63 to '67, and they're $500,000.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I can buy an MG that is a British steel-bodied car for $2,000.
Nice.
And
Yeah.
have the roadster feel. Yeah, granted I
Sure.
don't have Shelby power, but
Sure.
who cares?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
got Stuart Little's car. I'm happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
People ask what it looks like. I remember Stuart Little, and they're like, yeah, like his little red car. Yeah, that's what I got.
Nice. Right on. That's awesome. If there were a couple things that you would let's just take it 2-part, I guess. If you were to recommend something to somebody who's more or less at rock bottom now, what would you say to them?
Oof.
Or they're just like pretty deep in their addiction, and what would you want to say? And let's say they're somewhat receptive to help. Like, what would you want to hear at that point?
I love you.
Yeah.
You have value. I'm here for you. Though that would be it. I wouldn't try and tell them they need to go to this meeting or that meeting. I just say I love you. I'm here for you. And when you're ready, let me know, and I'll do anything to help you. I know for me personally, that was a big one to be when, and I still, Kim opened that door at the watershed and said, it's going to be okay. Everything's going to be fine. She meant it. And I believed her. And if I had that opportunity with somebody today, I would just tell them I love them, and you've got value. Don't give up on yourself, because so many people give up on themselves and say it's not worth it. You know, I've already done this, this, and this.
Yeah.
You know, and my biggest thought is if you're able to live through doing that, what's going to stop you from taking over? And what's going to stop you from doing great things? Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So I love you and I'm here for you would be the first ones, because I don't think they hear that enough. I know I didn't, and I like it. Oh, give them a big hug. Talk about random, weird getting used to. Go to a meeting with a bunch of dudes. We all hug at the end of it. Love you, man. It's kind of awkward when you're getting hugged by a big biker that you wouldn't have wanted to meet in an alley in the dark 5 years earlier, but he's,
Right.
come here, kid. It's like, oh, God. Let me hug you. It's like,
Right.
he means this well. I know he means well.
Right. Right.
So, yeah, give them a hug. Tell them that they have value and we're here for them, because there is lots of support. There's lots of groups out there willing to help, you know. And it's just helping them find that.
No.
Because something's going to click. It's just helping them find that thing that clicks.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was motorsports. You know, and odds. Telling me if I did this, this, and this, it helped me. That's what I needed. I needed percentages. And that's what worked. But for somebody else, maybe it's knitting. You know, maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's they just like the solitude of sitting in a room, listening to quiet music and knitting. And it helps them clear their heads. Who knows? But they don't know that till they try. You know, go to a meeting. Some of the best people I've ever met. Absolutely, some of the best people I've ever met. You know, when I came home from treatment, I got that exact same feeling or that exact same welcoming that I got when I checked into treatment. I walked through that door. They didn't know me from Adam, but they said, "Hey, how's it going? Have a seat." You know, and when I left that building, I took half a dozen really awkward hugs because everybody was just grateful I was still alive, and I was willing to try. So it was, "I love you, Aaron. Thanks for coming out." My very first sponsor. He was at that first meeting, and he said, "You know what? I've known your family a long time, and I love you, and I'm grateful you're here." And to have that come from a dirty old biker that I know I used to buy stuff from, and know that he's doing so well, yeah, that was a good feeling. And being able to tell people that would be what I'd want to tell them.
Yeah.
That'd be it.
Well, thank you so much, Aaron. It's been great to be able to hear your story. It sounds like you're doing really awesome things, especially with Racing for Recovery. So thank you so much. This was Eric and Aaron and Kobe, and as always, you and I for the Kenai.